receiving their benefits, that are preventing people from preventing research from happening, that are extremely vulnerable to fraud, and we're fixing it.
And does that include AI? Does that include kind of changing the system overall? That's, I guess, what people are afraid of, is they don't know what this is all looking like, and is it going to affect me in the long term?
It's going to affect them. It's going to affect people very positively. So the changes that we're doing here will ensure the solvency of the American government, of the United States of America. This is what we're trying to do, is ensure that people do receive their benefits in the future, and you can only receive your benefits if the country is operating in a healthy and competent way.
Up next, how the DOGE team plans to streamline some federal jobs and agencies, and later, Elon Musk answers some of your questions that you asked via X. Anthony Armstrong, DOGE Office of Personnel Management, Morgan Stanley banker, M&A guy. You know money, and this is a lot of money sloshing around.
There's a lot of money sloshing around. There's a lot of money sloshing out the door. And if you look at the federal government and the way the workforce works, it's really a one-way ratchet over decades.
So it's only going up.
It's only going up. You never take it away. So that leaves you with duplicative functions. It leaves you with overstaffing, and it leaves you with functions in the wrong places. So a couple of examples. Duplicative functions. Brad mentioned 27 CIOs. If you kept going with Brad, he would talk about the communications office, and you've got 40 distinct communications offices in HHS, right?
40?
Yeah, and that's not unusual, by the way. Multiple offices like that.
It's not making anyone healthy.
This is not about the employees. There's been many hardworking, well-meaning people who took these jobs. These jobs were out there. They applied for them. They took them. They're doing what's there. It's just that they're duplicating the effort of 40 offices. So you've got that. You've got overstaffing. A good example of overstaffing would be the IRS has got 1,400 people who are dedicated to provisioning laptops and cell phones. So if you join the IRS, you get a laptop and a cell phone, you're provisioned. So if each of those IRS officers or employees provisioned 2 employees per day, you could provision the entire IRS in a little more than a month. So 12 times a year, you could
why would you have 1,400 people whose only job it is to give out a laptop and a phone?
Right. The whole IRS could be held once a month. So that doesn't make any sense. And President Trump's been very clear: it's scalpel, not hatchet, and that's the way it's getting done. And then once those decisions are made, there's a very heavy focus on being generous, being caring, being compassionate, and treating everyone with dignity and respect. And if you look at how people have started to leave the government, it is largely through voluntary means. There's voluntary early retirement, there's voluntary separation payments. We put in place deferred resignation, the 8-month severance program. So there's a very heavy bias towards programs that are long dated, that are generous, that allow people to exit and go and get a new job in the private sector. And you've heard a lot of news about RIFs, about people getting fired. At this moment in time, less than 0.15, not 1.5, less than 0.15 of the federal workforce has actually been given a RIF notice.
So they're selected if they're leaving.
It is
Basically, almost no one's gotten fired. That's what we're saying.
Tom Kress, working at Treasury, you are having access to the payment system, oversees all the outgoing payments. Essentially, those payments were going places we didn't know where they were going, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the case, Brett. As an ex-CFO of a big public tech company, really what we're doing is we're applying public company standards to the federal government. And it is alarming how the financial operations and financial management is set up today. There is actually really only one bank account that's used to disperse all monies that go out of the federal government.
How about one bank account?
It's a big one.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. A couple weeks ago, it had $800 billion in it, but it's the Treasury general account. So when you hear, some of my colleagues here what they're talking about in terms of the fraud, you have to ask, well, why is this allowed to happen at a financial level? Well, it's actually quite simple but alarming. The Treasury, up until now, in fact, it's President Trump, we're fixing this. In fact, there's an executive order that he just signed the other day, which is protecting America's bank account, because it really is the taxpayers' money. One, we're changing the culture. The culture is been not a lot of caring and not a lot of commitment to doing what's right relative to financial operations. There's $500 billion of fraud every year. There's hundreds of billion dollars of improper payments, and we can't pass it on. The consolidated financial report is produced by Treasury, and we cannot pass it on. We have material weaknesses. What that means is that if I was a public company CFO, I would effectively be removed. I couldn't file financial statements. I couldn't issue securities.
Can't pass it on.
Can't pass it on.
Right, the federal government cannot pass it an audit. It's impossible. In fact, in order to pass an audit, you need the information necessary to pass an audit. You need to have the payment codes, you need to have the payment explanation, and you need to have a person you can contact to understand why that payment was made. None of those things were mandatory until just recently, just a few weeks ago. In fact, maybe last week.
Yeah, we're serving 580 plus agencies, and up until very recently, effectively they could say make the payment, and Treasury just sent it out as fast as possible. No verification. And so what we're doing is what any household would do. But imagine you're a household, you have a bank account, everyone has an ATM card connected to that account.
You hear this
Everyone has
shit?
a checkbook connected to that account. It's not just your children.
Do you hear
It's your
this
parents,
shit?
It's your in-laws, it's your extended family, and they all can
No
go to your
tracking,
account.
no accountability, no transparency. Fraud, fraud, fraud. Waste,
Up next,
abuse,
the Doge team
fraud,
targets
fraud.
government contracts, and we'll show you what they're finding. Tyler Hassan, Interior Department. You're a former oil company CEO. You're reviewing contracts before they're approved for funding. What are you finding?
Well, Elon and Steve kind of stole my thunder a little bit, but I actually found that customer service survey contract. I actually have an example of one right here. I could have done this in high school. And I found it. I found it on the weekends because under the Biden administration, there was no departmental oversight within the Department of Interior whatsoever. None. We are now reviewing every single contract, every single grant, and when things come to my attention that don't make sense, I'm bringing them to Secretary Burgum, and he's been fantastic. He's a businessman. He's very supportive of Doge. It's been wonderful to work with him.
Is the battle between government of decades and decades of buildup and business, which you guys are, is that like a train hitting each other? I mean, it seems like...
Is this and that if you don't give us money?
Sure. So who went with the gun to Netanyahu's head, and he assumed that they mean they want money?
Wait, do you think the only type of a threat is only when you have a gun against your head?
No.
Okay, cool. So in this case, that means that you can threaten other people.
All this that we're in right now, it just happens to be that most of us here, we're a bit older, right? But the true industry of all of this is for the little ones that are coming up because they all gravitate to all of this, is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, but isn't that the point that if you allow a child to participate in an environment where, as an adult, you should know better than to let that happen? The child ain't gonna dismiss themselves from it. You know, if my parents wouldn't have allowed me to be in the room when they were in the house or wherever they were with their adult friends, if they would have let me stay there and listen to them talk, I wasn't gonna say no. I don't think that should be
Amen.
A child should be given. You know, they shouldn't be given that option. That's just my opinion.
It's pretty well, this is a revolution. And I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the industrial revolution. But at the end of the day, America's going to be a much better. America will be sold out.
We're gonna scam them tonight. What's your number?
My cell phone number?
Yeah.
I
Don't be scary, bro. You got like 1,000 burners.
I know, but like, there's no point in texting me. Like, we're gonna coordinate this. I've got all these accounts. Do you have X?
I actually do have X, funny enough.
What's your handle there?
Alright, give me a second. It's at LUV Ishmael. At Love Ishmael 87616.
Wait, love LOVE or LUV?
LUV
LUV ish ma L, and then what number?
87616.
Jesus, can't you just like make it easy?
I tried. I wasn't actually making this account to socialize with anyone. I just needed to get into rooms that happened on X. But here we are. Adrian Dittman, there we go. My secret weapon.
Be careful what you wish for.
No doubt, no doubt. Oh, that's crazy. I put that same video in the first video you got on your page. I got it on my page as well. Panama, Afghanistan, Iraq. The West is going crazy. Benjamin Netanyahu. Let's see, African Americans.
Okay, we're gonna finish listening to this Elon Musk Doge.
The critical programs that people depend upon will work, and it's going to be a fantastic future. But all we're going to
listen to this again.
America will be solvent, and I think it might be the
supportive of Doge.
Listen to this. Elon Musk declares that this is a revolution.
Wonderful.
Is the battle between government of decades and decades of buildup and business, which you guys are, is that like a train hitting each other? I mean, it seems like it's pretty disruptive.
Well, this is a revolution, and I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the original revolution. But at the end of the day,
hitting each other. I mean, it seems like it's pretty disruptive.
Well, this is a revolution, and I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the original revolution. But at the end of the day, America's going to be in much better shape. America will be solvent. The critical programs that people depend upon will work, and it's going to be a fantastic future. But
is the battle between government of decades and decades of buildup and business, which you guys are, is that like a train hitting each other? I mean, it seems like it's pretty disruptive.
Well, this is a revolution, and I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the original revolution. But
train hitting each other. I mean, it seems like it's pretty disruptive.
Well, this is a revolution, and I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the original revolution. But at the end of the day, America's going to be in much better shape. America will be solvent. The critical programs, I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the original revolution. But at the end of the day,
hitting each other. I mean, it seems like it's pretty disruptive.
Well, this is a revolution, and I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the original revolution. But at the end of the day, America's going to be in much better shape.
It's pretty disruptive.
Well, this is a revolution, and I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the original revolution. But at the end of the day, America's going to be in much better shape. America will be solvent. The critical programs that people depend upon will work. And at the end of the day, America's going to be in much better shape. America will be solvent. And I think it might be the biggest revolution in government.
Train hitting each other. I mean, it seems like is pretty disruptive.
Well, this is a revolution, and I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the original revolution. But at the end of the day, America's going to be in much better shape.
It's pretty disruptive.
Well, this is a revolution, and I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the original revolution. But at the end of the day, America's going to be in much better shape. America will be solvent. The critical programs that people depend upon will work, and it's going to be a fantastic future. But are we going to get a lot better shape? America will be solvent. The critical programs that people depend upon will work, and it's going to be a fantastic future. But are we going to get a lot of complaints along the way? Absolutely. And I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the original revolution. But
Hitting each other. I mean, it seems like it's pretty disruptive.
well, this is a revolution, and I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the original revolution. But at the end of the day, America's going to be in much better shape. America will be solvent. The critical programs that people depend upon will work, and it's going to be a fantastic future. But it's going to be in much better shape. America will be solvent. And I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the original revolution.
Hitting each other. I mean, it seems like it's pretty disruptive.
Well, this is a revolution, and I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the original revolution. But at the end of the day, America's going to be in much better shape. And I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the original revolution. But at the end of the day, America's going to be in much better shape. America will be solvent. The critical programs that people depend upon will work, and it's going to be.
Yo, my trash bag. Yo.
What's up?
I'm creating content for my political campaign.
Yeah, what are you running for?
16th district here in Illinois for Congress.
Representative to Congress in the House of Representatives?
Yeah, we're primarying Rhino LaHood, the vaccinologist and fake Republican.
And how many other? So you would be the Republic. You would be a MAGA Republican.
Yeah, I'm MAGA.
Is it MAGA or MAGA?
MAGA. Some say potato, some say potato.
I know. I have a very nasal MAGA.
You know, I'm the same. Can you say the word mall for me?
Mall.
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 Say it more with a more nasal. Mall.
Mall.
My cousins from Georgia used to make fun of me. They'd be like, "Yeah, cousin Johnny says let's go to the mall."
Mall. What does he say?
Mall.
Mall. I don't fucking know. Booties. This lady's running in the snow. I had a friend who sometimes we walk by, we'd see a fat booty and say, "Oh, fat booty."
So I don't know if you've heard this Elon Musk Fox News interview with Brett Baer. Have you heard it?
I heard you playing on repeat. It's going to be I think it's a revolution, and it's probably the biggest revolution since the original revolution.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, but at the end of the day, America's going to be in better shape. The critical programs that we need are going to work, and I think that's all I heard.
Yeah. It's got 5 million views on YouTube, Fox News, but across X and everywhere else. This is like a shocking video to many people to hear Elon Musk declare that this is a revolution, bigger than the original revolution or as big. And so they have taken control of the Treasury Department's bank, which does all the disbursement, and they have declared that there is absolutely no tracking. So they're saying that there's $500 billion worth of waste in the government every year. The thing is,
there's no tracking. Like basically the way that I do my finances and how it's like a complete mess.
yeah, same thing.
That's how everybody does it, basically.
Yeah, there's no actual corporate standards. Like if you go work at Google,
Okay.
Facebook, Microsoft, their businesses are as big as they are because of their tracking. It's to the dot.
So
It's
per
to
my
the
question
pixel.
the other day, the chances of me getting audited by the IRS are effectively zero.
Zero, pretty much. Yeah, like you.
Yeah,
It's like
pretty
one
much
in
zero.
1 in a million. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, that's good, I guess. It's not good for me. Yeah. So that's good. Good luck to you. Mazel tov. Baruch Hashem. You will be successful in your mission. And whatever happens, whatever will be, will be.
Thank you. Yeah. Even if I don't win, the whole thing is to put the spotlight on the people who are claiming what they aren't. Meaning that where was their Doge campaign prior to Elon? Where was your complaints then? Where was your knowledge of what was happening? Where is your media showing us what the true transparency is?
Yeah. Tell me about your opponent.
So I had Danny on here earlier reading information to me about him. His name is Darren LaHood. He's in the 16th district. He sits on the anti-China congressional committee. He's got 3 kids. He doesn't have an impressive educational background. He has no military service. And he claims that he's a fiscal conservative, but there's no records indicating that any of it is true.
Clubhouse has honed your ability to eloquently improvise sentences that contain a coherent message.
Yeah.
So I think that you would be like, if there would ever be a situation where you could debate, I'm sure that you could crush it in a debate. And if you just get to speak to people, and what are you going to do? Are you going to do door knocking and handshaking?
You have to. I mean, I don't want to knock on people's doors, but I figure like 10 a week. 10's always the magic number. So it's the thing is, you got to go knock and record it and create content. See, this whole thing that I've realized is that I'm pretty good at creating content. So I actually stand somewhat of an actual chance in pushing my propaganda versus his propaganda, and possibly, because I'm now actually federally registered, it gives me more credibility. So, my campaign manager says that anytime he does an interview with a media outlet now, based on the campaign, they are also required to interview me as, the competitor to his campaign. So, and I actually got contacted by Donald Trump's former data manager, supposedly. It's a solicitation email, but it shows that there are political consultants out there that watch these registrations, and they email everybody who registers. And this guy's MAGA. So I forwarded it to my friend Max. He's like, what did I tell you? He's like, I told you. He's like, as soon as you file it, you're going to start getting contacted and having opportunities. So I was like, yeah. I was like, this is amazing. And
that's very exciting.
I suggest you file too. It literally takes 10 minutes to throw your hat in the ring, and it costs no money.
Scared of everybody. I'm just scared to leave my house. I have,
Well, that's a better reason to do it. Build a bunker in your house. Don't be afraid. You can't live in fear because these people are brainwashed and propagandized, and it's you who are liberating them from their own deception. They are deceived not just by themselves, but by their own government, by the media and the propaganda that they've put out. We've never had the moment where we've actually said, oh shit, the news is all fake. It's all propaganda. And all these politicians push out propaganda. Look at AOC. I mean, how can you, I know you think you're a trash bag, but as a man, how can you think that AOC is any better than you? She's not. She's a communist, socialist, terrorist, and she's a fucking full of shit. She's hot, and she's not stupid. But have you seen her Instagram live where you're like, yikes, this is a politician? This is like a child. This is like a mentally defunct retard. This is cringe and crazy. She's very strange. All of this is bizarre. And she's got millions of followers that literally parrot her. My ex-girlfriend, in many ways, these girls are...
She just is basically one of those girls. I mean, they're all the same. There's 3 of them, actually. One of them might be a man. But I just drove by them. But they're all basically basically like AOC. I mean, she reminds me of very many girls that I have
Yeah.
dated, a lot
Yeah.
of girls who you meet. They're just like, yeah, she's got sweet boobs, and that's basically it. And she hates America. She's like typical woke, hates white men, hates capitalism or whatever, but she's like, yeah, I mean, they're all the same.
So my point is, if you don't throw your hat in the ring, I mean, like, what's the point not to do it? Like, there's no downside to just saying, you know, I'm running for congressional office, and you get to debate these politicians. That's the coolest thing about it is it does come down to a debate. If you get on the ballot, you two do have a public debate, usually administered by like your local flag newspaper, you know. So it's a fun experience. This is my second campaign. The first one was for committee person, lost that. Now this is the second one, and I told Marshall Rankin I'd hire him for $1. I was like, you can teach me how to do door knocking. He's like, oh, I'm with you. I don't know if he said that, but I'm just teasing. Anyways, we're gonna go back to Elon Musk and Doge. Here we go.
Fantastic future. But America's going to be in much better shape.
It's pretty disruptive.
Well, this is a revolution. And I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the original revolution.
The biggest revolution in government since the original revolution. Elon Musk is our new Don Lafayette or our new Kazimir Pulaski.
But at the end of the day, America's going to be in much better shape. America will be solvent. The critical programs that people depend upon will work. And it's going to be a fantastic future. But are we going to get a lot of complaints along the way? Absolutely. You know, one of the things I learned at PayPal was you know who complains the loudest and with the most amount of fake righteous indignation? The fraudsters. It's a tell. These NGOs that are crazy, they look like the $2 billion to Stacey Abrams NGO that basically didn't exist, and somebody gets $2 billion.
You hear this? The Stacey Abrams $2 billion NGO.
Order from the federal government. Which is why. And there are many such cases like that.
I think that most people, common sense wise, would say the fraud's got to end.
Yeah.
They're concerned about the 94-year-old mother who skips a check or somehow doesn't get what she's supposed to get.
Right. And what we're trying to say is actually that the 94-year-old grandmother is actually, as a result of Doge's work, going to get her check. She's not going to be robbed by fraudsters like she's getting robbed today. And the solvency.
So I interviewed with the FBI, and they're like, "Why do you want to work at the FBI?" I was like, "Because I've worked in digital advertising, and I know how much digital fraud there is." And I was telling them, like, there are people out there that must have their entire life savings stolen from them, like their whole portfolio at their brokerage, just deleted, removed, wired out, and they can't get it back, and there's no recourse. They all looked at each other. They're like, yeah, he's right. We should probably spend more time trying to, you know, kick in the doors of these major criminal enterprises.
Of the federal government will ensure that she continues to receive those.
So earlier in this interview, they'd say that 40% of all phone calls from Social Security recipients are from people trying to essentially do identity theft, to do an account and a routing number transfer with the Social Security employee. So he's saying that if you have Social Security, they have your number and they were going to call you and they're going to get your money. Like, so fraud is just so endemic and rampant, and it's almost impossible to stop because it's really just person to person. It's call center to, you know, recipient.
The Social Security checks that Medicare continues to work, without which we're all doomed. And the reason we're doing this is because if we don't do it, America's going to go insolvent. We're going to go bankrupt. And nobody's going to get anything.
Why are you guys all doing it? I mean, you could pipe up, but...
You hear that part? That's kind of the funny part. He says nobody's going to get anything. Okay, that's not true, Elon. You know it's not true because we live in a fiat system where we can just keep paying ourselves. Problem is, it's not moral to do that. Everyone's got to go to work and earn their living, file their taxes. So Musk is really a hypocrite here because he has explained how we just create money out of thin air and every country does it that runs off of paper money. So it's just not true. But really, if you want to properly critique Elon Musk, you would just call him a hypocrite because he's enriching himself at the expense of the taxpayers. Why doesn't he just take a $0 salary and file $0, in income? This is the problem with what's happening. Is eliminating fraud is great, but not being transparent and playing a game or being hypocritical is not really solving problems. You're just obfuscating and not telling people the truth. Like, if he wanted to tell us the truth right now, he would have gone into the Federal Reserve right now at this very moment and said that Congress and the Federal Reserve are the ones that have been fucking you. And Treasury is fucking you too, but on a much more intimate level.
You don't have to be here, right? I mean, you don't have to be doing this.
I have four beautiful children, my wife and I, but we have a real fiscal crisis, and this is not sustainable. And what's worse, back to my children, everyone else's children is worried about burdening them with that debt, and it's only going to grow.
See, there's not a lot of hierarchy here. You guys.
It's kind of funny, we're burdening them with that debt. Debt to who? Debt to the banks, debt to the Federal Reserve. It will be perpetual slavery. It already is. At $40 trillion, that's 40 Apple corporations. That's 40 Microsoft Corp. Those companies took 50 years to build, and they don't disappear overnight because they're fully integrated into society. So when they say that we can't do this to our children, well, if that was true, not only would they slash and burn, I mean, you would have to shut down everything because they're shutting down really left-wing organizations, but they're not shutting down the military. No. Recruitment goals are way up. The pipeline for the meat grinder has accelerated. And all of this debt leads to war, whether internally or externally. And I think we are at that point internally where when you see what they were spending money on, that's enough, in my opinion, for major clashes between the population and the taxpayers and your average citizens and the government, which is wasting all of that money on bullshit. But the international war
I
is
hope
coming.
that was a 60-second clip. Each one of these could be a 60-second clip. You're basically practicing for your campaign right now. Like, I mean, you're right, because if a lot of people, if a normal people ran, America's hungry for normal, sane people. And if you just present yourself to be normal and sane, and you can simply articulate the things that most people are thinking but not saying, then they will flock to you.
Yeah, you know who James Snyder is here on this app? He ran for Congress in Missouri. He wears a MAGA hat.
Yeah, Red Hat James.
Yeah, Red Hat James. He said people would come up to him and start crying and say, "I believe in you. I trust you." Because when you are transparent and you're actually providing the opposite, this is why the Dow Daging is so important, is the opposite position of what they're saying creates a silver lining of truth. And they're not really being transparent because all communication is hypnosis. So this is the propaganda projection of Elon Musk, but he's not being transparent. He's not actually telling us what other options could be, which is a minimum basic income and giving two shits about the debt. Because if we're already insolvent and they're claiming that we will be insolvent in the future, it's still a lie. We are insolvent now. $40 trillion is insolvency, but we just keep creating fake money out of thin air. We're spending $100 billion to fund the IRS to collect $5 trillion, and we're spending more than what we collect by like $2 trillion a year. We're spending like $7 trillion a year. So over Trump's presidency, they will add $10 trillion to the deficit and take us to $50 trillion. If we were under Kamala, they would have taken us to maybe $60 trillion, and they would have declared new economic policy, which is Marxism. And essentially, there is no such thing but infinite debt, and the world has to catch up to our infinite debt. That's one way to position it. It's totally dishonest. No one personally runs their life like that, but the government seems to be able to do that. But Doge is saying, no, this isn't true. This isn't. But they're not even saying it's immoral. I mean, they're saying it's immoral, but they're not really explaining monetary theory or economic theory from the perspective of Congress and the Federal Reserve, which is responsible for getting us to where we're at. Nobody else took us to this but Congress and the Federal Reserve. And they're exposing the minutia detail of the agencies and all the categories and descriptions of what all this bullshit spending is. And people are like, what the fuck? He's exposing woke spending. And this is a great thing. So I'm not anti-Elon. He's giving us transparency in a way that we have never had, and it's shocking because think about the last 25 years and how there's been no transparency. None. There's no ledger of our tax dollars and where it goes and how much more they borrowed to spend on things that we didn't want, need, ask for, or vote for. I'm telling you, like, it's not just an economic and a financial crisis. It's like a constitutional crisis. Like this it's a bureaucratic transparency crisis, and it's that bad to where you really should have no faith in this system until they tear it all down and make it transparent. Like this is a miracle, and this is why Elon is saying it is the biggest revolution since the revolution. This is a revolution of transparency and propaganda. This is a new propaganda. And we have to listen to it and call a hypocrite, even if the guy's on our side, because you can't play both games and not be attacked from both sides. Anyways, this is just like basic communication. We're gonna continue. Here we go.
We're kind of all approaching it in different, silos, but with the same kind of goal, right? I mean, this is really Silicon Valley.
And what's funny is you're not hearing this stuff on Clown House because this is a woke app. But soon you'll hear this Elon Musk Doge meeting with Brett Baer on Clown House. Some of the bigger rooms will start talking about this because it's that good. And they know in their heart that what he's saying is true. And there's no excuse for their position.
Private sector colliding with government.
Yeah, exactly. We're headed in that path, but the chance of success exists. And just the one that just is in my head right now, which is a fairly mundane one, but I think is very illustrative, is credit cards.
This guy's name is Steve Davis.
There are in the federal government around 4.6 million credit cards for around 2.3 to 2.4 million employees.
Zach, you don't have a government credit card, do you? Because I got 2 sitting in my wallet.
Do I have what?
I have 2 government credit cards sitting in my wallet. Purchase cards and travel cards.
Right.
But it's not like you can go out and just use it. You have to, there's like multiple layers of approval before you can even use it. And even if you try to use it, it won't work unless there's a back end approval. So it's like, if this is another part where it's like these people haven't really disclosed what's happening. But the thing is, like they said that there was absolutely no oversight into the Interior Department, like that Biden provided no oversight into any kind of purchase or requisition at Interior, and they're talking about multi-billion-dollar contracts with no federal oversight, no congressional oversight, no senatorial oversight, no supervision. So it's like runaway bureaucrats internally spending billions of dollars on all kinds of woke programming.
This doesn't make sense.
Right.
And so one of the things all of the teams have worked on is we've worked with the agencies and said, do you need all of these credit cards? Are they being used? Can you tell us physically where they are?
I hope they're getting frequent flyers.
Actually,
We do.
On a different note, the rewards program the federal government has is actually not very good. That's a whole other. Yeah, exactly. But so far the teams have worked
It's true, there is no rewards program, but anyways.
together and they've reduced it from 4.6 million to 4.3 million. So
we're taking it easy.
Yeah.
Clearly, that should not be, more. There should not be more credit cards than there are people. Yeah.
Joe, middle-level employees, are they seeing a benefit to being empowered by taking out bureaucracy? I mean,
absolutely. I think what you're seeing is taking the best of Silicon Valley, the business world, and bringing it into the government. We're bringing the best practices and the best methodologies, and people are inspired, right? Especially on the retirement process, which I can speak to. They've been trying to modernize and get off of paper since the early 2000s, very unsuccessfully. Every attempt has gone over budget and been canceled because it hasn't been successful. And so
this is Joe Gabbia, Doge Retirement Project. He's one of the founders of Airbnb. He's modernizing the federal retirement program from being a 9-month retirement process to being like a 5-day process.
Because it's an interesting problem. we can use design to solve it and good engineering and really create a better experience for everybody.
We're talking about elementary financial controls that are necessary for any company to function. So, like, if the federal government, if a commercial company operated the way the federal government does, then it would be immediately go bankrupt. It would be delisted. The officers would be arrested. The changes we're putting in place will enable the federal government to pass an audit. It will enable taxpayers to know where the money is going and know that their hard-earned tax dollars are being spent well. But the ways that the government is defrauded is that the computer systems don't talk to each other. So if the computer systems don't talk to each other, then you can exploit that gap, and fraudsters exploit that gap and take advantage. If, for example, there were over $300 million of Small Business Administration loans that has been given out to people under the age of 11.
Well, I can't that.
Did you hear that? $300 billion in Small Business Administration business loans to people under the age of 11.
It's 300 million under the age of 11 and over 300 million to over the age of 120.
Definitely.
300 million to people over the age of 120.
All business loans, correct?
Yes. The oldest American.
So this is all federal fraud. People applying with identity theft to generate loans. I mean, and the government just gives it out because there's no oversight, protocols for security, identity verification, let alone the programs shouldn't even exist.
114.
It's called wealth redistribution.
So it's safe to say if their age is 115 or above, they're fake. Or they should be in the Guinness Book of World Records. And we should not be giving out loans to babies. So
Elon Musk declares that we should not be giving loans to babies.
The youngest recipient of a Small Business Administration loan is a 9-month-old, which is a very, very precocious baby we're talking about here.
Well, this is a precocious 9-month-old baby.
So obviously it was just fraudulent. And they do terrible things. They actually will see that a kid's been born. They will steal that kid's social security number and then take out a loan and leave that kid with a bad credit rating. There's literally a baby. The terrible things are being done is what we're saying. And how we're stopping these terrible things.
And you can't stop?
We are seeing terrible things and we are stopping them. And this is just one guy with a team of IT professionals, software developers that are rooting out all this fraud and abuse. People that work in the government, they're too lazy and they don't even care, let alone they have to do it in a way that they're forced to carry out fraud on behalf of these people, either because they're in on it or they're just so naive and stupid and they're being gamed. But the fact of the matter is, the money is given out because these people exist, their jobs exist, and their jobs shouldn't exist, and the money to do all this wealth transfer shouldn't exist. This is an aspect that Musk isn't even talking about, that this should never have been set up to begin with. This is nothing more than wealth redistribution. We're just taxed to death in this country. 60% of your life, 70% of your life is just to work to pay for society. Not for you, not for your housing, not for your food, not for your clothing, not for your car, not for your life, but for society. The whole system is bankrupt. And, you know, that's why this really is the biggest revolution maybe in American history, because if this continues and Elon and Doge and these Doge administrators who are taking over the boards of all of these quasi-government, like my sister works for a quasi-government agency which has been taken over by Doge, and my advice to her was be flexible and be patient. You know, if you have a reactive mind and you're emotionally reactive to all of this, you are part of the problem, not part of the solution. It's your attitude of resistance against these types of changes, which has always caused conflict in your life. Personally, that's the way I view all my fuck-ups, is that I resisted change. And I didn't go with the flow. And I wasn't nice about it. And I became a prick and a complainer. But no more. We are in the age of Doge.
Well, the reason this is happening is because the two systems are not talking to each other.
Yes.
Right? And so you don't know at the Small Business Administration that you're giving a loan to a 9-month-old gender in one case because you're not cross-referencing that with the Social Security Administration data that has birth dates. So that very, very simple fix eliminates tremendous fraud. And that there are multiple systems across the government where the systems are not speaking with one another. And if you just solve that simple problem,
they're just completely separate systems. They're just not integrated. And so what you have to do is shut the systems down and build one unified system with all the databases and all the tables. It's just, see, you can shut down IT. I mean, and create a, I don't know if it's even possible. Who knows? See, this is where it gets very fucking crazy, because what these people do is they operate off of what's called basically a ticketing system. And a ticketing system, it just creates priorities of bugs and issues within these networks. But it's just so big, and there's so many people that work in IT that don't actually work in IT. They work technically in hardware and not in software. And therefore, they are just useless IT employees. Like he said, at IRS, they had 1,400 people who could replace the entire workforce in 1 month with IT. Just too many employees doing redundancies. So this is the problem with taking jobs away from Americans. Is it's okay to have redundancies, that these people can be re-educated, but to remove them from a career service is detrimental to we the people. We the people need income. And if they're going to take away our income, they're basically anti-American, saying, this is the problem with the hypocrite, is you can't say we're broke and eliminate our jobs and put people into poverty so you can redirect the money of new creation and into your new projects, like taking us to Mars. Taking us to Mars isn't going to solve somebody that needs income. It's not going to solve their problem, because this whole thing is based off of fiat. So we have to essentially identify the hypocrites.
you would solve a huge amount of fraud.
One of the key tricks that the fraudsters pull is that they will use the fact that someone is marked as live, and as sort of just that social security number is marked as live in Social Security, and then get disability and unemployment insurance for a dead person. Because the databases don't talk to each other, all they got was from Social Security is like, is this person alive? Yes, they're not alive. It's falsely marked. The person is falsely marked as alive in Social Security. But they didn't. But that person, a fraudster can now get unemployment and disability from a dead person.
See, this is where Elon's public speaking skills and his stuttering doesn't necessarily help him. Dr. Don, we were listening to Fox News. This video is 4.5 million views. It's Elon Musk.
I'd love to be able to interject on that point.
Oh, go ahead, Dr. Don.
Well, like when
this is happening all the time at scale.
Are you surprised at some of the legal efforts and some of the judges that have weighed in? There's about 8 or 10 now of these cases that are at least temporary holds. They're being challenged by the DOJ. Are you surprised by that pushback?
Well, it's the DC Circuit is notorious for having a very far left bias. And when you look at the people close to some of these judges, where are they working? Are they working at these NGOs? They're the ones getting this money. Does that seem like a system that lacks corruption? It sounds like corruption to me.
Last thing, do you guys all see this as a patriotic duty? Is that really what this is about?
It's essential.
Right, I do, 100%. I was running 5 businesses in Houston, and I left that. I left great people to do this, and my wonderful wife said, go for it. And here I am, but I feel like this is me giving back to the country.
If we don't do this, we're sunk. The ship, unless this exercise is successful, the ship of America will sink. That's why we're doing it.
Well, gentlemen, I really appreciate the time today, and hopefully, really what this is about.
Okay, Don, tell me what you think about this. Do you think this is patriotic?
It's essential. The people close to some of these judges, where are they working? Are they working at these NGOs? They're the ones getting this money. Does that seem like a system that lacks corruption? It sounds like corruption to me.
Last thing, do you guys all see this as a patriotic duty? Is that really what this is about?
It's essential.
I do, 100%. I was running 5 businesses in Houston, and I left that. I left great people to do this, and my wonderful wife said, "Go for it," and here I am. But I feel like this is me giving back to the country.
If we don't do this, we're sunk.
Man, hold on.
Unless this exercise is successful.
Oh, you saw it? Okay.
Ship of America will sink.
Okay, you saw it then.
Yeah, with like the
That's why we're
guys
doing it.
Well, gentlemen, I really appreciate the time today, and hopefully it took some of the myth and mystery out of Doge and what's happening behind the scenes.
Thank you.
formally.
We asked on X, your platform, for some questions, and here is C. Sperling. He writes, are they happy with the speed at which they're making changes? Are there any changes they would like to make but haven't yet?
Well, I think in the context of the government, we're moving like lightning. In the context of what I'm used to moving, it's slower than I'd like. What seems like incredibly fast action by government standards is it's slower than I'd like, to be totally frank. But we're all making solid progress. A very sort of thorny problem, a tough problem, really it's kind of like painful homework, frankly, is reconciling all of the government databases to eliminate the waste and fraud. These databases don't talk to each other, and that's really the source of that's the biggest vulnerability for fraud, is the fact that these databases don't talk to each other. So we need to reconcile the databases. It's a frankly painful homework, but it has to be done, and will greatly improve the efficiency of the government systems.
We didn't talk about any plans to approach cuts at the Pentagon. You're in there.
The Pentagon has not passed an audit in a very long time. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, they will lose $20–30 billion a year, and they literally don't know where it went. I mean, Senator Collins was telling me about how she gave the Navy $12 billion for extra submarines, got 0 extra submarines, and then when she held a hearing, said, where'd the $12 billion go? They didn't know.
Talking to those guys, you have a great team from all over the country. You don't have to be here. You don't have to be here. You know, there's now been these many cases of violence and vandalism at Tesla dealerships. How does that affect your employees, your customers? What does it mean to you? Like, how have you taken that in?
Well, I think a great wrong is being done to the people of Tesla and to our customers.
Okay, that's going to be all that I play for now. Thanks for coming here.
How much I've lost Tesla?
How much? How much have you lost?
I'll tell you exactly. Give me a second.
Prepare good refreshments, the sage called out to his wife excitedly. We have an honorable guest, the Rebbe of Liadi. He deserves very good refreshments. The Rebbe left Zavts with great honor and traveled on to Rab Yehoshua Zeitlin, a disciple of the great author of Shah Agath Ari, a blessed
So that's 66.
Well, he wants me to have made him. I wouldn't have made him. Let him go through what I go through.
Suffering is experience antipathy towards
the fool, the horns Dionysus wears reflect expanded perception. The rainbow surrounding his head means wholeness, unity, the bridge between heaven and earth, inner and outer. Between his legs is a cluster of flowers, which represents the process of transformation. At the bottom, the active aspect, the 3 flowers. Prepare good refreshments, the sick pool, the fool, I ain't brown, it's the hermit. I am the dew. The sun.
sensing at the forefront of her.
How about you? the other kind of stuff.